Hello, everyone. So I am back. Last week I took Friday off, but back today with my Friday Night Live, talking about things that have to do with retirement, specifically federal retirement and financial literacy and things of that nature. So tonight we're going to talk about something that we've talked about before, but it's come up several times this week. So I wanted to re-engage and I wanted to go back and talk a little bit more about it. And that is picking a day to retire. Next week, I already know that I'm going to talk about reward credit cards. So if you don't work for the federal government, this one may be helpful to you. It might not be helpful to you. Next week is going to be for everybody. So I've already decided that's what it's going to be. But usually, and I have to say that because I wasn't here last Friday, right? Usually, every Friday night at 1800 Eastern, I'm on here doing the Facebook Live. I would love, and I will say this later on too, love if there is a specific topic that you would like for me to cover in these short sessions, that you go ahead and let me know what that is. We can talk about anything that you would like to talk about with federal retirement, federal benefits, the insurances, financial literacy, TSP, Social Security, Medicare, you name it. I would love to be able to present information that's going to be helpful to you. So tonight, I do want to talk about picking a day to retire, and specifically for federal employees, because again, it keeps coming up and there are a number of questions. So I think that there is a good day to retire, a potentially better day to retire, and the best day to retire. If you've come to one of my classes, you've already heard this. But again, people sometimes get confused about it, so it's never a bad idea to just have a little bit of a refresher. What I consider to be a good day to retire is absolutely any day that you can do it. Any day that you can financially afford to do it, any day that you're emotionally ready to do it, any day that you're eligible to do it. And our federal employees need two things to be eligible. They need to be a certain age. They also need to have a certain amount of creditable length of service or have worked for a certain amount of time. We're not going to get into all of that tonight. We have talked about it. We'll talk about it again if you want to. But here, I'm just going to say we have to be eligible. When we're eligible and we're ready, that's a good day to retire. It doesn't matter if it is a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of a month, in the middle of a year. As long as you're eligible to retire, that's a good day to go ahead and do it. I like to tell people, though, that there is also a better and a best day, and I want you to take advantage of the largest number of things that's going to set you up for the optimum retirement date. Not just a, but a really good one, or maybe even the best one. So a better day to retire is the last day of a pay period. The reason that's a little bit better is that leave isn't prorated in that final pay period. If you don't work the whole pay period, you don't get any annual or sick leave for that pay period. It's not part. If you don't work the whole thing, you get none. Now, also a better day to retire, though, and this is where some of the confusion comes in, I think. Also, a better day to retire is the last day of a month. The reason that's true is that federal annuities begin to accrue on the first of the month and they pay out a month later. So the example that I always give in class is for myself. My birthday is the 15th of June. If I have my birthday on the 15th of June, where I'm now finally old enough to retire and I do it, then I'm not earning pay from the 16th to the 30th, right? I'm not working. I'm also not earning retirement because those retirements begin on the 1st of the month. If I leave on the 15th, that will start on the 1st of July and I'm eligible for that payment a month later, or the 1st of August. But that 2 weeks at the end of June is not covered financially. I'm not getting pay because I'm not working, and I'm not getting retirement because I left in the middle of the month. So the last day of the month is better. If I go on the 30th instead of the 15th of June, my retirement still starts on the 1st of July. In the middle of July, I get my final paycheck for the last 2 weeks at the end of June, and the 1st of August, I'm still eligible for my first retirement check. So you see how that's better. If you're under the old retirement system, which is the civil service retirement system for our federal employees, or CSRS, you got 3 additional days there. You can go on the last day of the month or the first, second, or third day of a month. And as long as you do, your retirement will start the very next day. So that means that a lot of our CSRS and CSRS offset employees will try to match up one of those 4 days, last day of the month, first, second, or third, to the end of a pay period. Because if they can match it up to the end of the pay period, it's even better. Now they earn the annual and the sick leave for that last pay period, and their retirement still starts on the very next day. But that's harder to do if you're a FERS person. If you're under the federal employees retirement system, you got that 1 day, right? The last day of the month. And if it happens to be also the end of a pay period, then cool. But you don't have that 4 days to play with. You got that 1 day to play with. So, and this is why it's come up recently. So a lot of FERS people will not want to give up that last 8 hours of annual leave. They don't want to miss out on that last 4 hours of sick leave. And so they go, the last day of that pay period is going to be on the 5th. And so I'm just going to wait and retire on the 5th. Okay, but let's talk through that. If you do retire on the 5th, you will get that additional 4 hours of sick leave. And you will get that additional 8 hours of annual leave because you finished the pay period. But what you won't get is a month's retirement check. Because if you leave on the 5th, that's not going to start until the 1st of the following month. You don't get that money until a month later. So it's up to you. But if you back that up to the 30th or the 31st, so it's now the last day of the month, you get a retirement check for that following month. Sure, what you have to give up is 4 hours of sick leave and 8 hours of annual leave. If you don't want to do that, then what you need to do is look at a calendar and find one where the last day of the month is also the last day of the pay period, or the last day of the pay period is very close to the end of the month. So you're only looking at a couple of days when you're not going to be covered financially. That's okay. But remember to look at the whole picture when you're making your decision, not just that little one thing to go, oh, I need to get the annual leave. Maybe, or maybe it's going to be better for you to just let that go and pick that last day of the month. Okay, so good day is any day. A better day is the last day of a pay period or the last day of a month. It's even better if you can match those two things up. We know that the CSRS people have an additional 3 days that they can kind of play with. The best day is generally the last day of the calendar year. Many federal employees will choose December 31st as their retirement date, and there's a lot of reasons why that's true. Number one, it's the last day of a month. So I don't care if I'm talking about June 30th or I'm talking about December 31st. I work up to that point. My retirement starts the very next day. I'm eligible for that retirement payment a month later. I don't have to give anything up. Okay? So we've checked that box, if you will. Another reason that a lot of people pick December 31st as their retirement date is because of annual leave. Federal employees get credit for their sick leave, but essentially in their retirement check, okay? The more sick leave that I have on the books when I retire, the bigger that retirement payment is going to be for the rest of my life. Whereas for my annual or for my vacation, they're going to cut me a check for that. Right, I get paid in a lump sum for that. Takes a couple of weeks after I leave my federal job, depending on my agency, depending on my payroll function. But a couple of weeks down the road, I'm going to get a payment for that. If I leave on December 31st, I can be paid for more vacation than at any other time of the year. Here's why that's true. We don't cut you back to your use or lose cap until we get to the start of pay period number 1. That's never going to be before January 1st. That's the soonest it's going to be. If you leave before we get to the date that starts pay period number 1, when we cut you back to your use or lose limit, there isn't a limit. you can be paid for all of the vacation that you have on the books. So you can see on my slide, am I lying? Yes, I am. Let's see. You can see on my slides that different employees have different use or lose limits. Depends on what kind of work that you do, depends on whether you had overseas service, depends on sometimes the level of employment that you have within the federal government. For most people, the cap is 240 hours. So that's what I'm going to use as I talk about this, right? 240 is my use or lose limit, but not until I get to pay period number 1. If I leave on December 31st, before pay period number 1, and 240 is my use or lose limit, then I could be paid for 440 hours of annual leave in that final cash out. As I was talking about, the last day of the pay period and the last day of the month and making sure we look at the whole situation, I want to do the same thing here, okay? 440 would be true only if 3 other things are true. And first, let me say, remember, your limit could be different than everybody else's. This is typical, but maybe you're not typical. So start with your limit, but I'm going to start with 240. So my final year of work, I started with 240 hours of annual leave on the books. I am currently earning leave at 8 hours per pay period. And normally, when I leave on December 31st, we're in the middle of a pay period. That's not always true. So every once in a while, I will finish out that last pay period, but pretty typically I don't. So normally, it's going to be 8 times 25. I start with 240. I earn 200, that's 8 times 25, and I don't take any leave in that last year that I'm working. If that's all true, then I would have 440 hours on the books and they'll pay me for all of it. Now, again, that's going to come to me a couple of weeks down the road. It's going to be flat taxed before I ever get it. They take out 22% federal income tax right now. 6.2% Social Security tax if I'm a FERS person or an offset, not if I'm traditional CSRS, and 1.45% for Medicare, and state taxes come off the top as well. So sometimes people will go, yeah, I'm not doing it. Right? I don't want to have all of that tax burden, so what I'm going to do is use my leave. So a lot of people will ask me what's better. It's up to you. If you're using your leave, then it's as if you were taking it, which means it's taxed at whatever your normal income tax rate is. But then when you leave your job, the only thing you have to look forward to until OPM processes your retirement, and that can take a while, is going to be your final paycheck. Whereas if you store up this annual leave, you don't take it, then not only are you going to get your final paycheck, but you're also going to get the cash out of that annual leave. And if you've got 440 hours, that can be a substantial amount for you to tide yourself over while you're waiting for the Office of Personnel Management to actually process that retirement. And even though they take the taxes off the top, that doesn't mean that's what you owe in taxes. That's what was already sent in for your taxes. It was a withholding. At the end of the year, file your taxes. If you're not in the 22% bracket, then get a refund or maybe pay a little bit more. Okay? So we picked December 31st because it's the last day of a month. My pension starts the next day, because I can be paid for more annual leave, because that payout for the annual leave is going to come after I leave my federal job, which means if I go on December 31st, I'm going to get that sometime in January. It's taxable when I get it. I might be in a lower income tax bracket after retirement, therefore making that a little bit more beneficial. Another reason that a lot of people pick December 31st is because of cost of living adjustments in retirement. COLA is based upon the Consumer Price Index from the previous year. So it's announced in October, it's effective in December. We don't see December's retirement check until January. So a lot of people think it's for next year. It's for last year. So if I did retire in June and come January, there's a COLA, I'm going to get 50% of it, because I was only retired for 50% of the year. Whereas if I retired December 31st, then next year if there's a COLA, I get all of it because I was retired for all of the year that it was in effect. Now, we're not getting into all the COLA stuff tonight either because I'm coming up already on quarter after and I try to keep these things super short. First, people, please know, unless you are a special provision employee, law enforcement, firefighting, air traffic control, customs and border protection officer, unless you're a special provision employee or you retire on a disability, you generally get no COLA until you're at least 62. So maybe that's not going to be something that you consider when you're picking your retirement date, because maybe you're retiring when you're 56 or 57 and you're not going to get a COLA until you're 62 anyway. But it is something that a lot of people consider. So, exceptions to the last day of the month. We did talk already about the fact that CSRS people have those additional 3 days. If you are a special provision employee and you come up on your mandatory retirement date, and that is not the last day of the month, then your retirement will start the very next day. There's no negative impact to you because of that mandatory separation date. Same thing is true if your agency is offering an early out. So you see VERA on the slide. That stands for Voluntary Early Retirement Authority. If your agency is offering an early out, they will tell you when you need to go and whatever date that is. Normally it's the last day of the month anyway. A lot of times it might be December 31st or it might be September 30th where you can finish out the fiscal year. It doesn't matter. If you're offered a voluntary early retirement, then your pension would start the very next day as well. You don't have to worry about that being the last day of the year. So exceptions there. Exception 2, if you go out on a disability and or if you qualify for something that's called a discontinued service retirement, which is effective if you lose your job through no fault of your own. That DSR does become available the very next day as well. Okay, those are all of the slides that I have for you this afternoon. I can see that I've got 5 people watching. I can't see who you are unless you approve eCam to see your name. I don't actually see that, but I would love it. I would absolutely love it if you would please just go into the comments, let me know that you watched live, or if you're catching the replay, let me know that you watched the replay. Remember, I've already asked you when I was starting the stream, if there's anything that you would specifically like for me to talk about, let me know. Let me know, please. Feel free to share this also with others that you think would find it helpful. I'm hopping off. I will be back here next Friday, Friday Night Live, 6 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me then. Take care.